It is almost fall outside here in Chicago. The days are getting shorter, the leaves are starting to turn, and I am totally ready for it. And it's time to get cozy. Even though it can get hectic with the holidays, I think there's just a really good moment for us to slow down and start to savor things right now. Today, I want to talk about just that, savoring things. What it really means, why it's important, and some ways that you can do it, including some ways that you might be surprised by. So, what exactly is savoring? I think we oftentimes think of that in the context of food, enjoying the pleasure of eating something, taking our time, etc. And that's a really big part of it. But I think it's also really about enjoying something fully, giving something your full appreciation and gratitude, really appreciating the best that something can offer you. We're so often distracted by our phones, by the news, by social media, by text messages, by the TV. There's a million things out there that are distracting us, and being able to step away from that for a second gives us an island of calm and respite from all of that. In another way, it's really about extending and prolonging your pleasure, which I think is, again, a really important thing. Is it hedonistic? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but if so, great. We can use a little bit more of that. I think the other thing is that it's about a feeling of gratitude. By paying attention to something, you're really giving it your focus. You're giving it the appropriate focus that it deserves. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about food and relationships as well. I think that we can all use more positivity, pleasure, appreciation, and gratitude these days. So I'd like to share with you an example of one of the things that I like to savor every week. It's a little healthy treat of an apples and a dip. Now, it may sound simple, but I think there's some good stuff in there, so stick with me. Now, you might just say, okay, it's apples, it's a dip. What do? You just eat it and take it all in. I think there's a way of approaching it that's a little bit more interesting, and I have found to be kind of almost a meditation as I go through my week. It gives me a moment to think about what I'm doing, to pause and to reset. So here's the recipe. It's not really a recipe, but here's the recipe. Go and get the most delicious apple that you can. I'm a big fan of things in the crisp family, your honey crisp or your cosmic crisp, but any good apple will do. Red Delicious, those mealy, well, choose your own adventure, but I know what I like. So make sure you wash it, got to clean, make sure that apple is good and clean. And then what we're going to do is we are going to slice it. Now, you could get one of those like apple slicing contraptions that you kind of push it through the apple and the core pops out and it splits into 8 pieces. But, what's the fun of that? What I like to do is take a really sharp knife and go to my cutting board and I cut it in half. And then I cut it in half again until I get it into the size of pieces that I want to eat at. Just little bite-sized apple chips. Super simple, nothing crazy. Of course, cut out the little part with the seeds and throw that away and the little skinny bit, but, cut into some apple slices. Instruction number one. And don't rush through this cutting process. I think there's something almost meditative about it when you are feeling the resistance of the apple, when you're hearing the sound of the, knife hit the cutting board, when you're getting that little bit of sweetness as the apple starts to break apart into little pieces. It's funny as I'm thinking about cutting up this apples into little pieces, I'm reminded of when I was a kid and we would go to church on Sunday. And after church, as a treat, we would go to a bar. Again, this is growing up in Wisconsin. So, yeah, mom and dad went to a bar. A couple of the kids came with. So, as a treat and to kind of keep us quiet, we would get a little individual bag of Doritos, my favorite. And I remember so distinctly that I would very carefully crush the bag of Doritos so that when I opened up the bag, I would have more chips. Not that the volume increased, of course, but I would have the ability to like prolong the experience of eating the chips, knowing that I only had like one small bag of chips to eat. So I just think that's funny. Maybe I've always been a savorer of sorts. Enough of the Doritos story. Now it's time to get back to the apples and dip. And so making the dip could not be simpler. Funny thing is that I really remember the first time that I learned about this. I was at my sister Jeanette's house. We were just hanging out, watching TV. It was getting late and we needed a little snack. So my sister pulls out a jar of peanut butter and some yogurt. So she drops a couple of tablespoons of peanut butter into a bowl, drops about half a cup of yogurt into a bowl, starts mixing it up, mixing it up, mixing it up, and suddenly it's like this fluffy, light, delicious concoction that I totally fell in love with immediately. I am a big peanut butter lover, so if you like peanut butter, it is a dynamite treat, and it's also like real healthy as long as you use the good stuff. Now, before you dive in and start eating, I think there's another moment of savoring that you can do, and that is to savor it with your eyes. You know, you've cut up these apples, you've got this beautiful dip. Why not make it a visual presentation as well? So arrange those apple slices in the dip. Treat yourself to a little visual pleasure along with your food pleasure. You deserve it. So, of course, now that you've got your food prepared and you've got it presented, it is time to enjoy and to savor it. I'm reminded of a book that I recently read by Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk and peace activist, died a few years ago. And it's this book. It's a very small book, a very easy to read. It's called How to Eat. It's part of a series of books that he and his followers have put out, but it's a really easy read. I recommend checking them out. But in this book, they talk about this classic meditation, and it is a meditation on a tangerine. The idea of this meditation is as you consider the food you're about to eat, in this case, a tangerine, or we can talk about the apple, you should take it in, first of all. Take a look at it. Its beauty, its smell, what it sounds like, what it feels like. It's a sensory experience. It's a sensuous experience in a lot of ways. But then there's a further contemplation you can do, which is a meditation on where it came from. You can think about the tree that the fruit came from. You can think about the farmers that tended that tree and the people who picked that fruit. You can think about the sun and the rain and the earth and all of the systems that had to come into play in order to make this delicious piece of fruit come to fruition. And then you can think about a little bit more broadly, like, what is this apple made of? It's made out of the same thing that we're made out of, and that the earth is made out of, and everything that we know is made out of. And it's stardust and the cosmos and the cycles of birth and all that sort of thing. So I think that there's, again, a moment of contemplation that you can savor as you're about to, experience this delicious food. I think it's a really interesting way to approach savoring things and gratitude. And there's a whole meditation around it. I will link that in the description so you can take a look at that. So far, I've talked about savoring a process and savoring a food, which I think we're all pretty familiar with, but I think there's other ways to savor that I want to talk about a little bit. So one of those is savoring relationships. And even with this, apple and dip example, I think there's something about sharing that with someone that you love, sharing a meal, a shared sense of appreciation, both for the gift of the food and the preparation of it, but for the company and the relationship that you have that is really special. It goes beyond that, obviously, to sharing any meal, giving attention, giving your presence. Attention is, the most valuable thing we have to give. It's, in some ways, all we have to give. And I think that appreciating that with someone, appreciating experiences with someone is really special. So I'm thinking about other ways of appreciating and savoring relationships as well. And one of those is from a couple of weeks ago. Matt and I visited San Francisco, where I used to live, and we met up with some great friends of mine, Anthony and Andy. Very sweet couple. Really love those guys. We went and had a beautiful Italian dinner in North Beach. Spent a couple of hours having a lot of laughs, catching up. It had been a couple of years since I'd seen them. It was really great. After we left Anthony and Andy for them to go home and for us to go on to visit some other friends, I asked Matt if we could take a moment to just not go on to the next thing right away. We were standing there in a great part of town in North Beach. It was a beautiful, cool San Francisco night, and I really just wanted to revel in and savor that experience of reconnecting with these friends, being in the city that I used to live in, and having a lot of great memories and making new memories. So we took a little stroll down the street. We stopped into City Lights bookstore, which is a very famous bookstore in San Francisco, had a few quiet moments to browse the shelves, take a look at some new arrivals, check out some poetry books. And then after a little while, I was ready to go. I had just needed that moment to appreciate and take in the experience I had just had, sort of set it in my memory, and then we were off onto the new thing. So I think about that moment, and it really kind of amplifies the great times that I had with my friends, both before and after it. So I think there's something about spending a moment reflecting upon the good times that we're having right now without constantly being pulled from one direction, another club, no sleep, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a moment that we can take that is a magical one. So there are some other ways of savoring that just come to mind real quickly. One of the things I'm currently savoring is anticipation. If you're a nerd like I am, you probably know about the game Silk Song. Silk Song is a game by Team Cherry. It's been, in production and development for many, many years. It's a follow-up to the very popular Hollow Knight video game. So it came out about a month ago, and I have not yet bought it. Like I said, it's still late summer, early fall in Chicago, so I am savoring the anticipation of playing this game. I just know there's going to be some snowy day in winter or some rainy fall day where I'm not going to have anything else on my plate, and that game is going to call my name. So until that day comes, I am going to revel in and savor the anticipation of being able to play this game that I know I'm going to love. Another funny sort of savoring moment that I was thinking about is savoring kind of difficult experiences. As as I'm getting older, I've been kind of trying to change up my exercise routine a little bit, and I've been doing high intensity interval training, which involves basically sprinting for a minute and then walking for a minute, and then sprinting for a minute and then walking for a minute. And it is very intense, and repeat that like 20 times. It's very intense. It really works up a sweat. It gets the heart rate going, and it is just exhausting. Fantastic workout. The first time that I did it and the first few times that I did it, I hated it so much. I would dread it. I would feel like, oh, I'm gonna die. I'm feeling out of breath. This is too hard. Why am I torturing myself like this? But I had a bit of a mindset shift. And what that entailed was really tuning into the experience of running while I was running, knowing that it was just going to be a little temporary moment. It was going to be 60 seconds. I can get through 60 seconds. And as my training continued for a few weeks, I actually started to look forward to that because there's the anticipation of the actual endorphins and all the exercise and all the sweat, but then there's the anticipation that it's going to be over soon and I can get through this and I can do this very difficult thing. The funny thing, and this is a very weird little aside, but I have this mental visualization as I'm on the treadmill, running as fast as I can, sprinting, turning that thing up to 9, 10 miles per hour. And for like those 60 seconds, I'm a machine. I'm like a horse, a thoroughbred running as fast as I can. And there's something kind of exhilarating about that. How often do we get to just run and run and run as fast as we can? That's something we did as kids, you know? So, yeah, I think that it's in a weird way, a funny way of like really, really savoring some unusual or difficult things. I think that brings up another thought for me, which is about savoring the temporary. So I grew up in Wisconsin, lived in Minnesota, now I live in Chicago. So in the Midwest, the seasons really dictate a lot of how you might be feeling about the world and what's going on in your life. I think the other great thing about the seasons is that there's a sense of temporariness to them. You know, things are going to change. Spring will become summer, summer becomes fall, fall turns into winter. So there's this annual cycle of how your life might change. And there's also what comes along with that, I think, an urgency to take action and seize what's the best parts of the season in the moment. So during the summer in Chicago, it's beach time. When that water gets warm enough, let's go to the beach. This might be the last weekend. Let's do it right now. When fall comes in, it's like, well, let's go out and enjoy, all those great fall things. Let's enjoy apples and pumpkins and the leaves and corn mazes and the crisp air and the last chance to take nice walks, et cetera, et cetera. I have a lot of friends who live in California, and I lived in California for a little while. And I think that sense of the seasonal savoring is dulled a little bit. I know it's a classic trope of LA people who live so close to the beach who never go to the beach because it's always there. There's always the possibility of it. So we'll get to that some other time, or we'll do that when friends are in town, or it's too far of a drive, or the traffic. So I think when you are faced with a deficit of something, or when you're faced with the possibility that something is fleeting, that just makes you go after it and savor it all the more. There's something about being, again, mindfully attuned to the time and the place that you're in that I think really brings that sense of savoring things to life. So I know I'm far from the only person who's talking about this right now. Mindfulness and meditation have been around for thousands of years, and recently there's been a huge resurgence in interest from it, from a mental health perspective, from a scientific perspective, and from other perspectives. It is good for you. There's all this focus on the attention economy with social media and all these companies vying for your attention as dollars. And I think there's a real need and desire for a lot of people to take back some control of where their attention goes. And I'm all for it. So even the New York Times is in on the attention game and the focus on savoring things. They have this thing that they've been publishing called the 10-minute challenge, where they're encouraging people to go online and take a look at a work of art for 10 minutes. They've done this a few times. It's really interesting. They provide some great backstory and information about the artwork, but also just to encourage people to have the time to stop and ponder and really take things in. I'll link to a few below in the description. They're really fun. I think there's so much attention and focus on taking things slow and being mindful because the world is such a particularly crazy place right now. Part of being able to change things for other people is to take care of ourselves. And that's really hard in a world where we've got these crazy news cycles, we've got AI slop yelling at us from all over the place, we've got social media blaring and grabbing at our attention and notifications all the time. It is tough out there, full stop. And I think if we want to be people who want to make change in the world, we need to take care of ourselves first. We need to acknowledge what we can and what we can't do, look at what our capacity is, what our responsibilities are, and then also give ourselves the resources so that we can go out into the world and make some change and keep ourselves healthy and keep the people that we love healthy as well. People talk a lot about, self-care, but it usually falls under the guise of buying themselves something expensive or getting a little sweet treat and indulging. But I don't really know if that's actually what we're talking about when we're talking about self-care. I think that savoring something and being mindful is something that is right at our fingertips at any time. I think there are plenty of things that are free, that are empowering, and that we can do right now. For example, you can take a deep breath. That's a core of many mindfulness and meditation practices. And it's that for a reason. It's something that we are doing unconsciously all of our lives. Every breath is a little bit different. Our breath tells us something about ourselves. It tells us how we're feeling. It tells us a lot about our bodies and about our mental state. At any time, you can take a deep breath, and it's like hitting a reset button. I think there's always the opportunity to savor the things right around you, whether that's like a fuzzy pillow, whether that's looking at some artwork on the wall and appreciating the color and the form. Just savor our appreciation for someone else, whether that's someone in our past, whether that's someone in our lives today. Take a moment and appreciate them, appreciate their memories, appreciate what they bring to you, appreciate a laugh that you've shared. And hey, if it moves you, maybe reach out to them and make a connection that can only bring a positive moment to somebody's day. And if none of that works for you, well, maybe you can go ahead and make yourself a little apple snack with some peanut butter and some yogurt and savor that. because it is fantastic, and there's a lot of fantastic things out there to savor. Anyway, I hope this video has inspired you to savor something, to think about things a little bit more mindfully, and to be appreciative of the things that you have and the things that you can do in this world to make it a better place. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.